Good morning. This is Steve Hoffaker. Thanks for joining us this morning for our webinar program. This morning, Ellen Belk is going to be presenting a fantastic program. Ellen has been a student of dementia and ways to work with people with dementia, and particularly the home environment, which so many of us are interested in. And she has a really good program to share with us today. The program is being recorded, and let's go ahead and turn it over to Ellen. Take it away.
Well, thank you. And yay, for if you guys are on here live with me, you're investing in your success, hopefully. And I hope not to disappoint you. So we're going to get right into it because I've always bring more content than I need. But I am Ellen Belk. I am the founder of the Keep in Mind, that logo you see on the screen. And let's just get to know each other a little better as before I launch into today's actual program. Bear with me. There we go. I actually am I'm over 21 years in senior housing leadership. So these are some of the name brands that I've worked for. I've held national director, senior vice president, divisional director for Atria. These are all obviously professional senior housing settings. And at Milestone, I was their national director of memory support and resident experience. We had 100 communities in that portfolio. And I was a travel warrior from California to Rhode Island every week, crisscrossing this country, supporting those communities from a dementia perspective, always. My whole lane in 21 years is always predominantly, except maybe the first couple of years, I've always been on the dementia side, the dementia space. And so I share that with you just to give you that professional background. Along the way, when I left when I left Atria and I opened my company, Keep in Mind, is when I really transitioned into my holistic dementia care solutions. I'll explain that as we move forward. It'll give you an idea of why I'm so passionate about the environment. And when I mean the environment, I mean the care environment for the purpose of this conversation. Right now, I opened my company originally in 2011, and then in 2017, two of my clients, one on the West Coast and one on the East Coast, merged. And I did shutter Keep in Mind for about 3 years as I they were both using my dementia operational system that I have a trademarked program. And they were both using that for their dementia care operations in their professional settings. And when they merged, they made me an offer that I really couldn't refuse. So I did shutter Keep in Mind for a few years. And then I thought it a really great idea to come back out in the middle of a global pandemic and reopen my business as a solopreneur. Who would have known? But anyway, these are some of the other groups, and these are just people that are either clients or collaborative partners. I just want to give you a little bit of a breath of who I am. These are some of the brands that fall under my company. Keep in Mind is the parent company. The registered trademark system that I just referenced, which we call the 360 system. This is a team approach to operations in long-term living. So this really is this is to help senior housing do this work better. Because again, if you've been touched in any way, if you have clients, anyone who's had their life touched by dementia understands that it takes a team. I don't care if it's you and your grandma or if it's an entire portfolio of 40 buildings that it takes a team of people. And so professionally, I have led, and created a system for that. Recently, last year, we launched the Kim Academy. The Kim Academy is an online dementia education platform where I do stuff like this. And we have coursework for all different layers of people, anyone interested in just what we say, elevating your dementia IQ. That is our mission at the Kim Academy, to elevate the global dementia IQ one student at a time. But most importantly, I share those professional credentials with you. But today, because we're going to be talking about, the bulk of this is designing a home, a personal home. Sure, there's going to be people that say, hey, if you live in assisted living, that is your home. Absolutely. But I am a part of your tribe, as Steve indicated. I've taken his coursework in the universal design and build because for several reasons. I, as a professional, I told you 21 years, I'm on the senior housing side. I also am very well aware, courtesy of our pandemic, actually. It's little secrets that we already knew before everyone went into lockdown. But there's been, if you guys are paying attention to, the healthcare landscape, senior housing was exposed during the pandemic. It's an industry that is going through now, and I'm here for it. Let me just tell you, a seismic change. And I'm looking forward to see the nuance, the next phase of senior housing, because it's a very necessary shift in backwards, actually. And when I mean backwards, I mean, instead of these mega conglomerates, we are starting to see now more regional people bringing the care of their citizens back to regional locations so it can be smaller, more intimate, done properly. I'll leave you with that, but along the way, I realized that this was coming. Even before the pandemic, I realized, and that's when I kind of introduced myself to Steve. I started to educate myself and take his coursework on the universal design, but it also is in large part the home, the home where people want to be home. And when in most people's mind, 80% of people, especially when there's dementia and as part of the equation, home really means their personal dwelling that they're familiar with, the place that they've lived and raised children, whatever it's usually not a professional environment. I hope we can all agree on. And I'm a wife, and my husband and I are in business together. On the right side are his parents. We have care needs with his parents. My husband and I we are solo children providing care for both sides of our family. His parents are significantly increasing in care needs, but where the dementia touched my life personally, I've had some great success professionally over these years, but in my 10th year, I told you I'm in my 21st year now, in my 10th year of senior housing leadership, where I already had become established as a dementia expert, it touched my life. And this wonderful picture here was taken in my parents' condo in Wisconsin. My husband and I, that's me, the goofy gal doing the jump behind the sofa. My husband and I had come to Wisconsin to visit my mom and dad. Our wedding anniversaries are within 2 days of each other. We were there. In this picture, we were there to celebrate my mom and dad's 60th wedding anniversary. My dad, already at the taking of this photograph, was 2 years into his dual diagnosis of Lewy body and Parkinson's. Lewy body, if you don't know, I'll give you an overview. It's a tough dementia, very different from Alzheimer's, a different part of the brain, not the exact same, trajectory as Alzheimer's disease, but he had a dual of Lewy body and Parkinson's. And I show this always often in trainings, because look at this. We are laughing, we are loving, we are here to celebrate. We went out to dinner that night, and I'm telling you, we were 2 years into the Lewy body Parkinson's diagnosis. My dad was still living a very high quality of life. I take great pride in that. And even though I have had great success professionally in senior housing, it was our family's, desire. And when I say our family in this situation, it was really my mom and I. I had siblings. They were very much not involved, unfortunately. So even though I lived 1,000 miles away from this home that we are in at this point, I was the secondary primary, if you will, support to my mom. Both of them were oh, Steve, okay. Hopefully that. Both of them were in their 80s at this point. My dad was diagnosed at 82, so he was 84 in this picture, and my mom was 85. So I'm just giving you that context so that I have a very healthy balance of personal and professional expertise in this situation. So my objectives today with you guys are, we're going to not dive this isn't a masterclass in dementia in terms of I mean, I do those things where we talk and dissect all the different variations, all the ways you can have cognitive decline. That's not what we're going to do necessarily today, but we will do an overview, because what I then want to do is, in the second bullet point, is to impart suggestions and ideas that can enrich your efforts when you're dealing with your clients, which I get a sense, if I'm right, if I'm wrong, Steve, please correct me, but I get a sense that this tribe, you all tend to be working with people in their home settings, or even if you're a OTPT and you are going into assisted livings again, which is those people's home setting. I think, do we have a healthy mix of both, Steve, or are the people in, with us today? I bet maybe we have a healthy mix, or are they most often doing their work with people living in a personal home setting? Do you know?
I would think in the personal home, but address it as you need to.
And then the last thing is what I often find, we find it, remember, those of us in senior housing, we go into people's homes who are contemplating leaving that home and moving into a professional setting. And on top of it, which are hard conversations, especially when you're the person in the professional side of it, no one wants us. Literally, you're not born, and you can't wait when you have your sweet 16 birthday party. Your big wish when you blow out the candles is, I cannot wait to live in senior living, right? I think we can all agree it's not a dream that you have. So again, it's those of us in senior housing, we have had to have uncomfortable conversations with families, especially adult children who know their loved one needs to, be safe and protected, but there's resistance. And guess what? I understand that. So the last thing is, hopefully, what we're going to cover today a little bit can also I want to elevate your dementia IQ to a certain extent today, so that you can guide client conversations and kind of clarify why the environment, most notably the actual care environment, is so crucial for both caregiving success and for success for those loved ones in our care. So I like to start every training I do, families, professionals, groups like you. I like to ask the group, and if you're welcome to type in, and Steve, I'll ask you to read it if anyone types it into the chat box. Do you guys know, within the sound of my voice, do you know the difference between the words Alzheimer's and the word dementia? Do you think they're the same? Do you think there is a difference? Steve, just shout it out if there's anyone answering that in the chat box.
Not seen it yet. Go ahead and pivot. And here we go. Yes, there is a difference. Alzheimer's is the type of dementia.
Okay, let's jump off with that one. Very good. What I really want us to impart today, that person is correct. Alzheimer's is a type of dementia. If you take nothing else away, this is my biggest professional and personal pain point within our current climate, and it has been my entire 21 years in this industry. Dementia, the word dementia, is not the diagnosis. You're not told you shouldn't be. And we've allowed this for far too long, because the consumers we as professionals, and I include the Alzheimer's Association, these organizations whose job it is to research and develop, they've not done a good job educating the populace as to dementia is not the diagnosis. For example, I always break it down this way. We do call it an umbrella term. Another disease that is an umbrella term is cancer. I was diagnosed with breast cancer 2 years ago. When I got that phone call on July 25th, a day that will be seared in my brain forever, I did not pick up the phone. I was not alerted that I had cancer. And then we hung up the phone and I went on my merry way. Very quickly, we knew, of course, it was breast cancer. And immediately the conversation shifted to which experts would be in my care team, who would I be dealing with? And it was obviously, I only went to people that specialized and were experts in my type of cancer. and I'm over 50, if anyone's of my age, we can remember that back in the day, we never even said the word cancer out loud. Remember, guys, if you can nod your head if you understand, remember we used to say like the C word, or he has the C word. I remember that in my lifetime. Cancer has done, and again, please just hear me when I say it, cancer has done a very good public relations job, if you will, on educating the masses. We know that cancer is not where you stop. You're told pancreatic, breast cancer, lymphoma, what testicular cancer. You're told what type of cancer you have, and you proceed moving forward. We have not done that in the dementia space for a variety of reasons I'm sure that we won't get into now. But it's why I like to use my pulpit as a way to educate people. Those of us that are doing the care, you cannot stop with this. We as senior housing, we shouldn't let people move in and all that it says on there with their charts reading possible dementia. You guys, we are sometimes caring for 30, 40, 50 people in a secured memory support area. If you throw in the assisted living side, we've got 100 more people. And let me tell you, there is at least 60% of dementia on the assisted living side of communities as well. We're even seeing more dementia moving into independent living. So this is a global, we are on the rise. This is a global condition. It's the 6th leading cause of death. And we have to be more educated. So dementia is not the diagnosis. It is the umbrella. Now, that being said, that person who answered in the chat is correct. Alzheimer's disease is a type of diagnosed dementia. It is the #1 diagnosed dementia. It's the one that gets a lot of attention. This is the one that has a lot of money thrown at research. But in the 21 years, we've had minimal movement, to be quite honest with you, on moving the needle to more closer towards a solution of a cure for Alzheimer's. So while that's all being handled behind the scenes, I'm here to make sure that we as people who are touched by dementia understand that you have to get to the root cause of what is causing your loved ones, or maybe your own personal, what is causing the cognitive decline. The top 4 is what we're going to discuss today. As I indicated, this isn't a master class, but here are the top 4. I've already under the umbrella, as you can see, Alzheimer's disease is the #1 diagnosed type of dementia. Vascular dementia, Lewy body dementia. I've indicated my dad had, that was part of his diagnosis. Frontal temporal lobe dementia, another tough dementia. Very different diagnostically, very different in how it presents to to us as love, caregivers and those who we love. Very, very different journey. It's going to be some similarities, which we're going to just dive into briefly in a second. But these are just the top 4. There are more than 100 conditions. You've got, Steve made a comment about it, TBI, traumatic brain injury, absolutely can create a cognitive decline dynamic. Aphasia, I don't know if anyone is aware that Bruce Willis, the actor, has gone public with the fact that he has aphasia. That's where he started. I've heard behind the scenes that they have now given him more of a frontotemporal lobe dementia diagnosis. So his family is really being proactive, because that's a tough road that he's going to have ahead of him. But it still has many, many moments of laughter and love. It's why I always show that picture on the front end of my presentations. You don't get the diagnosis, and the next day you can't remember anything. Whatever diagnosis these are, whatever the ultimate diagnosis is, you don't get that, and your life immediately stops and everything changes. That's not how this goes. Most of these are slow, progressive, degenerative disease, of the brain, impacting your brain and other bodily functions. But it is, for the most part, unless you're diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease under the age of 65, that one is a little more quick. It moves quicker through the disease journey. But again, there's still so much life and love to happen. And it's why the environment and the care environment is so important to keep people successful. Okay. I like to show this slide. I show it in all my trainings as well, because especially for what we're going to talk about today, It's really important for us to understand. We're not going to go through this one by one. You're welcome to take a picture. I know you're going to get this in a PDF form when this is over, so you'll have this for yourself as well. I like this because this is a picture of a healthy brain. We like to, in layman's term, we say, hey, doesn't that look like a great healthy piece of, head of cauliflower that you would get at the grocery store? Everything is very full and flush. The synapses in between are there. It's perfect. They're perfectly portioned. You're not seeing a lot of atrophy. But why I show this is because it's important to understand, at least tangentially, what functions are stored in what sides of the brain. Because again, as we're talking today, most notably, I have a 4-pillar philosophy, which you'll learn about in a minute. This stuff impacts how we communicate, how we even feed. I have a whole credential that we're working on right now, on a credential for culinary people to learn how to properly present and cook and adapt food as people with cognitive decline progress through their journey. But for the purpose of this, I think it's important that we learn what's stored where. And again, it comes into play within the environment with subjectivity, synthesizing. Are you seeing things in 1D or 3D? These things, the objectivity, the analytical, all stored things here on the left side. These are functions that are stored on the left side of your brain, your logic, your reasoning. When these things are impacted, it really can impact someone's safety, someone's ability to recognize they may or may not be in danger. And again, often this impacts within the living environment. So a big part of our conversation today. As I've indicated, Alzheimer's disease is the #1 most diagnosed type of dementia in people 65 and over. Remember, I did reference earlier that there is an Alzheimer's. You can have young onset, we call that. It's a little more fast moving, and it's when you're diagnosed under the age of 65 that we refer to that as young onset Alzheimer's disease. But 1 in 8 over 65 have a dementia, an Alzheimer's disease diagnosis. These are, many of us tend to be familiar with, it's the persistent and worsening memory to the point that it actually impacts somebody's ability to function. It's more than that they don't remember what they had for lunch. If you don't remember what you had for lunch last Wednesday, don't worry about it. If you know that you don't remember what you had for lunch last Wednesday, that's a healthy brain. If you say, but Ellen, I don't remember where I went out for lunch last Wednesday, not a problem. If you remember that you don't remember, healthy brain, trust me, I'm telling you. It's when things become so persistent and worsening that, again, it impacts your ability to function. When you don't remember, this is why we train our professionals. And I say to you, whether they're clients or you're here because you have a loved one that you're trying to learn about, you will never win. I don't care if you were the queen of the debate club and you won awards in college, you will never win an argument with a person, most notably with Alzheimer's disease, because their reality, their thinking and their reasoning, although fractured because of the disease journey that they're on, they don't know that they don't know that. And so it really, that decline, look, as you move down, the decline in ability to make reasonable decisions and judgments, but it won't stop them from thinking that they are being reasonable and making good judgments. It's why you might have somebody in the middle of July with a 90-degree temperature on the thermometer go out in snow boots and winter jackets with a scarf around their neck. They're not it's not because they're trying to be quirky. It's really truly because there is a progressive degenerative brain disease happening and their judgment is so impaired. It's why we do, as advocates, need to pay attention and not chalk things up to, that's just grandma, depending on what it is. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully you understand. In the essence of time, I can't go deep as deep as I'd like, but it is this, and these are not even remotely close to all the bullet points that you could have that fall under Alzheimer's disease. But I'm giving you just kind of a nice brief overview, as we promised on the front end of this. Lots of changes in behavior here. You're going to see similarities as I move forward, as we touch now on vascular dementia. Again, the word confusion, problems with memory, that's going to be pretty indicative through all of these varying types of dementia, because it's all still emanating from the brain. All of these are impacting your brain. It's which part of the brain is going into the atrophy is most impacted. That's what really ultimately dictates, are you going to have the hallucinations, as you'll see down here, like in Lewy body, the visual hallucinations, which is this is a hallmark of the Lewy body journey. Movement disorders. It's also why it's not uncommon for people who have Lewy body disease to also have a dual, like I said, my dad had a dual diagnosis of both Lewy body and Parkinson's. We do know that those two particular maladies, if you will, Lewy body disease, dementia, Lewy body disease, and Parkinson's, for some reason, this is where I am a layperson. I take certifications of completion. I've heard doctors much more experienced than me talk about the brain science. I'm not able to do that right now, but for some reason, those two particular, Lewy body and Parkinson's, it's not uncommon for them to meet and create even a bigger, issue, both in the visual and the movement issues become more pronounced because of the Parkinsonian undertones. You can have Parkinson's without Lewy body disease. You can have Lewy body without Parkinson's, but it's not uncommon for these two to match up. It's also not uncommon. We find that in the 2022 facts and figures that the Alzheimer's Association put out, it was the first time they really, I saw a section where it was 80% of people that passed away over like 85, older people with cognitive decline who then passed away in a brain autopsy. It is discovered that there was multiple types of dementia there. So it's a magical, I say the brain is magical. I truly believe it. It's such a interesting place. It's it's our organ that everything comes from, but there's still a lot we need to know about it. So when you have this restlessness and agitation, that's somewhat indicative of vascular, again, unsteady gait. You're going to have same movement disorders, rigid muscles, slowed movement, also unsteady gait and Lewy body. It's why we have to really make sure we have proper flooring. We don't want high pile carpeting in professional settings or personal home dwellings. If it's our goal to keep our person in their home where they're familiar for as long as possible, we absolutely need to talk about what those adjustments need to be. Frontotemporal. This is the part of the brain that's, if you can see me, I'm touching the front part of my head. It's the frontal temporal part of your brain. And then it kind of goes from the front of your forehead down to the side. Depending on which part of the temporal lobe is impacted, whether it's the frontal or the, oh, I'm having a brain fart see? I know that I don't know. Maybe Debbie can help me out. I've told Debbie's it's the other part of the temporal. But again, this is the frontal, most notably, is where your social mores are stored. This is where people, it's often confused for a psychiatric condition. It's where people have inappropriate behaviors. I've had residents who grab the maintenance man's package, if you know what I mean, and they're wonderful women. I had 5 women. I tell this story. I had 5 women in one of my Atlanta buildings that all had frontotemporal. It was amazing, all the different variations of it. But hypersexuality tends to be a part of it in men and women. It's where you're saying things that you would never say in polite society, and none of these people would have if they didn't have damage to the brain. So this is a tough dementia. It's tough on families, and there is compulsive behavior, lots of movement, hard to get people to sit down, sleep through the night. So there's a lot of up and down movement when there's a frontotemporal lobe diagnosis. Again, so therefore we need to make sure the care environment supports this type of person. Again, we're going to, in the essence of time, there's way more, there's more than 100, but other things, just mixed dementia, which I just kind of referenced, most noted in autopsy studies of the brains of people 80 years old and over. Huntington's, this is actually a genetic mutation. And this symptoms of this, I've had 2 people in my career that I've cared for with this specific type of, it does fall under the dementia. It's in the dementia syndrome spectrum, but it looks and feels very different, and it's very much impacts movement as well, and your physicality. Traumatic brain injury, we've talked about, we're seeing increases in this, obviously, as we have, you know, endless wars, that we have people, men and women, coming home from, you know, combat situations where their heads have been exposed, if you will, just even in a tangential way, to explosions. People with TBI, CTE falls under this, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, most experienced by boxers, people that have prolonged, possibly untreated, but head trauma, head injuries. That's where you'll see that the CTE is most notably talked about in football players and boxers, soccer players as well. When you're constantly getting hit in the head with projectiles or brute force, it's possible your increase of getting a chronic traumatic encephalopathy is increased, most notably. So I did reference again in 2011, when I left my Atria position, it was in that position where, like I told you, at that time, I had only covered, I had 24 buildings in 11 states. And I was with that company for about 3.5 years. And in that time, every week I'm traveling here, there, into these 24 buildings in these 11 states. I had a big territory. And it was always was solving the same problems every time. And again, when you're the dementia expert of that division, you're always called, you're not called in for parties, you're called in when stuff is going sideways in a professional setting. And I found that every time I would go to help problem solve issues with either one resident or multiple, was there staff things, what was going on, I ultimately found out that in those years, it always kind of came down to 1 or 2 or even possibly 3 of these 4 things. So when I launched my own company and I started to formulate my voice and how I can be impactful in the business, I call it a holistic dementia care, because it's non-pharma first, to first evaluate the environment, which is what we're going to focus on today, but also how we're communicating with those that we serve with cognitive decline. How are we feeding them? It's so important for a variety of reasons, that the nutrition has to be increased. We can't have fast food and all the toxins that goes along with that while we're caring for someone with the progressive degenerative brain disease, and not think that that's not going to negatively impact them from an overall wellness perspective. We already know we've got problems going on in the brain, but when you don't support people nutritionally, you're piling on more problems that will also impact their wellness and just the whole care experience in general. And then engagement. These are 4 things. When we're not engaging people, when you're just sitting grandma in front of Fox News all day, and you're all going about your business, and she's just absorbing that with her cognition, her deteriorating brain, that can really come back to bite all of you in the keister later on. So we need to keep people engaged and moving, and basically everything that's good for the heart is good for the brain. So I'm going to give we're about to dive into a lot of pictures, so be prepared. But I want to set the scene on, as I've indicated, the environment is absolutely my first pillar. It's always where I start. In senior housing settings when you have overhead pagers, when you have lots of noise and chatter, when you have blasting TVs with pagers going off, and that, it's just way too much stimuli in the environment. And sometimes it's literally that simple. When you turn off the TV, when you get staff to stop shouting, not that they're shouting, they're not fighting, but they're talking across the living room where 6 residents with cognitive decline might be sitting or walking through, and all that cross chatter really becomes it's when you control that in a professional setting. I always am saying our goal is calm and nurturing. That means we use inside voices. We speak to, we don't shout across the room to our coworkers, asking them what they did over the weekend, because the care environment needs to be sacrosanct when you know you're caring for somebody with any type of cognitive decline. And I say that for families as well. You could have crying grandchildren, blasting TVs, a radio that your grandson is playing on the sun porch, and it's just too much stimuli in the environment. But we also want to eliminate, again, as my bullet points, I'm not going to read every single one, layered rugs. They are not the fan of me. And I mean, I am an LVT or engineered hardwood or whatever, clean, smooth surfaces, especially when you have the type of dementia, which ultimately all of them will have, but for sure, when you know on the front end that you're going to be moving into movement issues, like with Lewy body, the shuffle gait comes a lot quicker. That someone with Alzheimer's could have, could take them 10 years to get to a point where they're not able to, they're not moving. I've had people in their 80s with Alzheimer's who could, probably could have done a 5K. So that's the other thing. Here's another message, another takeaway. You meet one person with any type of dementia, one person with Alzheimer's. You might meet 40 people with Alzheimer's throughout your career, but every time you meet one of those 40, you're meeting one person. They're all going through the disease journey at a different rate. They're all having different, it's not a one size fits all. So you really have to, that's why it's such a unique experience to be caring for, these great group of people. I refer to them as my friends. I'm proud to serve my friends with dementia. I look at myself, the reason I want to train as many people as I can is because my end user in my mind, it always remains the person who's on the receiving end of the care, whether it's your grandpa or whether it's 30 people in an assisted living in Stuart, Florida. The end user is to make sure that those that we're caring for with whatever type of dementia they have, is that they are in a caring, nurturing situation for them to be as successful for as long as possible into their journey. Sturdy chairs, bathrooms. These are the bullet points, but let's start to talk about this. I want to show you, I'm a prove it with pictures kind of gal. This is a picture of my parents. This was my parents' condo, that condo where you saw me jumping behind the sofa. This was the family room. This was the reason there's a lot of reasons I could tell you about this particular room, but the biggest thing was this is an engineered hardwood floor. But before Dad's diagnosis, there was a very large bearskin rug. It was a big white bearskin rug in the middle of this floor. It was a throw rug, if you will, very high pile. And they lived here for 15 years. So that was fine. They were fine. Everything was good. We all came over. No one had a problem with that rug. My parents had, in their retirement years, they'd traveled to Yosemite. Mom had gotten that rug on that trip. It meant something. It was a shared memory with her and my dad. But once Dad had the rollator walker, once we were given the official diagnosis of Lewy body and Parkinson's, and I knew, now again, I was many years into the business already. I already had cared for people with Lewy body by the time my dad. That's why I knew we had to get the diagnosis, because I was suspicious that was what he had. There were visual hallucinations. There were other things that led up to this that I had seen before. And so I was pretty sure what we were dealing with. I obviously he met with a neurologist. We were given the diagnosis, and then we proceeded over to a neurologist who specialized in movement disorders. And she was a rock star for our family. My dad lived for 4.5 years. He was diagnosed at the age of 82. He lived very successfully for 4.5 more years until the end of his life journey at the age of 86 and a half. But I will tell you, getting that rug off this floor was not easy. So for those of you that are going to go into environments and say, ooh, I'm an OT, I'm a PT, I'm here to help this lovely family, and holy cow, we cannot have this white bear rug on the floor. Even in my case, I'm the youngest daughter having this conversation with my mom. But what worked for me, y'all, is that I said to Mom, what's our goal here? Very early on, Mom, what's our goal? What's our, not even while we're standing on the rug. It was like in general, her and I privately, what is our goal? Is our goal to keep Dad at home? And Mom, of course, was like, yes, absolutely. Well, Mom, we're going to have to make some uncomfortable conversations along the way. I knew that rug was going to be a problem. I didn't say it on day one, I had to wait until more things started to happen. And then it was, but I had the other part of the conversation early, like if that's our goal, our care environment is going to have to be top notch to suit and to be appropriate for somebody whose brain is going to start to go into atrophy and whose movement is going to start to change and be compromised. And so therefore I had already laid those seeds. I laid the seeds before we needed to do anything. And I encourage people and family to do that. Every conversation can't be during a crisis. You'll never make it through. You'll be exhausted on day 10. So when it came time, when the rollator, when that little pushing walker became a thing, that was the day I flew into town. I knew that we stood on that rug and I said, Mom, remember how we talked and this is our goal and here we are. This rug is just not, we don't have to throw it away. We don't have to get rid of it forever. We just can't have it on this floor where you and Dad spend 60% of your time in and out of this room throughout the day. It was, tears were shed on both sides of that equation, but that rug came up. And again, Dad lived for 4.5 years successfully in this home. This is the entryway to the home. One of the things that was part of my dad's prescription, if you will, from his movement specialist was to have physical engagement. He stay active early, like literally within the first couple of months of his diagnosis. And remember, he was diagnosed at 82. Mom took him over to the YMCA and he was on a treadmill, a Parkinsonian treadmill class, for people with movement issues to just keep moving. So we want to lean into these things. We know where the problems are going to be. We need to lean in. And so there had been a long rug here. It was a low pile. They live in Wisconsin. It snows 12 months out of the year. It feels like sometimes. So there was a rug in here, but we did have to pull that up as well. And the good news is again, I really got not a lot of pushback. The other thing, a couple things I want to talk about just in this hallway alone. This was their home. I have to tell you, I really hit the lottery big time. Other than pulling up that rug, this is what their home had looked like. This chair, genius. And everyone needs these. You'll see more pictures behind this. This happened to me by my personal situation. So I really hit the lottery. This mom had a couple of these throughout the house, but we put this here and it's a stiff back chair with arms where Dad could sit down here to put on his shoes before they were to go out or take them off. And then you can use those arms, those stiff arms on either side. Again, I know my PT people are going to be cheering me on. For them, you want Dad to be able in this situation to put his hands on both of those bars and railings and to stand up with his own body weight. Why? Because we want to continue to maintain movement when we know we're going to have movement issues. Does that make sense? Hopefully that does. The artwork, I draw your attention to this as well. They had large artwork. So many, oftentimes there's a lot of clutter or there's little stuff, knick-knack, paddywhacks, The one thing about all three of these pictures were also picked up along the way, I believe. I could be wrong about this, on their travels. And when we came back in, as Dad's cognitive decline did increase ultimately, we could reminisce. These were, hey, Dad, remember this trip? Or what a great time we had. I wasn't on these trips, but I knew enough to use these as talking points to keep him familiar with his environment. The last thing I want to show you are these door handles. And Steve, I know you're going to love this. They did this all on their own. When they built this, I think they built this in I don't know, I can't remember, 2007, this condo was built. And it's the lever handles. We really do want for all aging bodies, quite frankly, even if arthritis is involved, lever handles on doors are significantly better than the traditional doorknobs that become hard to, you want to be able to live in this house successfully. Thing here is there did come a point where Dad, this is still our home. You can see our goofy picture. I'm the little one in the middle back there. There did come a point, Dad's journey, we were keeping him at home. That was our goal, but he was up and down in the middle of the night a lot, not only to use the restroom, but there was hallucinations. There was day-night confusion. We ultimately did need to use overnight care support from my 80-plus-year-old mother could get, could get sleep. But So we had that, but there was a dresser drawer here. But and dad did get up about 2 to 3 times a night to use the restroom. So we cleared that dresser out of there, and he had a clear path. Our vantage point is like the door. So he would get out of this bed, not have a lot of clutter, nothing he had to stumble around or navigate through. He could come straight out the door and go use that restroom where we had an elevated toilet seat. And he was able to, and there was a care partner in that room with him too. There's a sofa over to the right, but anyway, my dad could remain as independent for as long as possible. So just again, here we're back to overstuffed plush furniture. And we're going to show you an example of just this. I know it looks good at Crate and Barrel, but when you've got aging bodies with, diminishing physical capabilities to begin with, and then on top of it, we're losing, our core, your core. It's hard to get in and out of the middle section of a sofa, a plush sofa, when you don't have any chair arms on either side to push up. We want to minimize excessive pattern in furniture and in the flooring. I'll talk about that in a second. We want safe and easy access to the outdoors. Nothing is better than fresh air for people with cognitive decline. Daily doses of it for all of us is good. It's absolutely great for our friends with dementia who need to try to sleep good at night. And so getting some fresh air and being out in the elements on the regular, we should not lock people away once they get the diagnosis. Here's some examples of some chairs. Again, similar. I like these, whether these are for your aesthetic. I'm just showing you them from what is a good. This is a little plushy, this chair up here on the right-hand side, but it's got the arms that we can, again, navigate in and out safely. This sofa, this is my example of, holy crap, not a great, if you have it, fine, but at least have another seating option in the space. This is not easy for people at aging bodies in general to be able to, I wouldn't even want to sit in the middle here. And again, you're already kind of sinking in, lots of pillows. This doesn't lend itself to safe in and out movement. Okay. This is a disaster for someone. This is a disaster for any of us, frankly. And not that it probably was in-house beautiful, but from a dementia perspective, as you evaluate your environment, as you look at what you're dealing with here, first of all, I find it hilarious that this picture was taken and you can see the glitches in this rug over the rug. I can't even believe the photographer took that picture. So now all you got to do is trip on this and you're hitting your head on the round, hard top table in the middle. This is awful. Again, it's not that it's not pretty. It's not that I wouldn't like to come to a party here, but if I'm caring for a loved one with dementia who has any kind of a shuffle gait, any kind of a visual limitations, whether it even be macular degeneration or cataracts, all this pattern, all this layered carpeting, not a good look, not healthy, not safe. Here's another example. Again, here we are, another carpet on carpet, and another sofa that is kind of a disaster. But the other thing I bring to your attention is the black line on this. Remember, I've been in senior housing for 21 years, that a lot of design developments have happened in those 21 years. And I cannot tell you, when in those older buildings built back in the 80s, some of you may be in and out of those buildings that have like the fleur-de-lis pattern on the carpet. It's a disaster for those of us trying to provide professional care. And when you have to walk people from their apartment to the dining space, or especially when there's a dark, like a dark on dark. Again, this isn't a master class, but I can tell you, and if you've experienced this might make sense. It's not uncommon for people to bend over. They see pattern in the carpet as we're walking down the hall, or in this case, in a home where I'm going from the kitchen to this gray sofa in the sitting room. And this pattern becomes confusing because, again, depending on where my brain is going into atrophy, I'm not recognizing that this is a one-dimensional thing, not the pattern itself. And people will bend over to try to pick up what they perceive to be on this carpet. So now because it's all part of their dementia journey, and God help them if they've got movement issues to begin with, and they're bending over in an unsafe manner. So pattern carpeting, if it has to be carpeting, we do want it to be low pile, and we certainly don't want black as part of the equation. I will also tell you another trick that we use in professional settings and can be used in a personal setting. When you have a person that's kind of an exit seeking person, when you put a black mat in front of the door that they're drawn to, Not 100%, it won't work forever, but it is a first good line of defense to put black in front, because it does black alone, a lone black mat in front of a door, actually, we believe, does perceive, they do perceive that as like a hole almost. I've seen my exit seekers stop dead in their tracks and more than one occasion when a black mat is put in front of a door. So it's just another little trick of the trade. I'm a big fan of having tactile objects. Forget the big plushy cushions. Let's have a blanket like this folded up in the corner or laying over in a basket somewhere. Tactile props that can be usable and comforting in moments of agitation, in moments where we just, need a reset. You want tactile things that, and these are all products that are available and certainly can be in a home setting, as well as, of course, we use these in professional settings as well. For those of you, I'm saying you got to clear the clutter. We can't be stepping over things. We can't have, the coffee table can't have mounds of photo albums on it and tchotchkes. And I know our families, especially those that have lived in their home for 40 years and now they're welcoming their grandchildren there. There's a lot of life history. There's a lot of treasures. We don't necessarily need to get rid of the treasures, especially if you're an adult child. We got to take these things in baby steps, but we need to corral them. So how do we do that? There's a variety of ways. It's at least a first step to get things off the floor, off the surfaces. We don't want visual clutter, and we don't want clutter, obviously, on the floor. So finding ways to, corral the keepsakes. Eventually knowing that you may need to get rid of them, but for right now, fight the battle before you need to really fight the battle, if that makes sense. And again, because you can say visual clutter is not good for grandma with, in the mid stages of Alzheimer's disease. We need to, you can use your knowledge of the disease to make the case as to why it's important to get the clutter off the floor. Just another example. There's a variety of ways, obviously, that this can be accomplished. I like this one actually, because there's some frosted glass. I could put tchotchkes back there. There's drawers. It's still accessible for me as a caregiver. If I'm going to go make dinner and I want my husband to sit over here in this chair by the beautiful window, and I open up one of these drawers and I pull out some objects or things that he can have and keeps him comforted while I go make dinner. So that you can be really strategic about it and still use things, but they don't have to be out in plain sight all the time. Here's an example of how important natural light is for first of all, I'm a big fan. I always tell all my employees, and if they always listen, I don't know. But the goal is in a professional setting, when you come in for the day, you open up the curtains, I don't even care if it's a rainy day in Seattle. It's still giving people on the inside who have cognitive decline some day-night orientation. If they're bored, everyone wants to sleep. If it's boring, if you have a boring home setting where all you're doing is plunking your loved one in front of a television and ignoring them, I'm not saying that's happening, but if you're observing that, they're going to sleep more, they're going to sit more. But if we have day-night orientation, we can at least see outside if we can't get outside. Here's another example. Again, don't look at this for the area rug that I'm not a huge fan of. Without this pillow, I'd even be okay with this chair. But really, again, it's just another example of trying to bring the outdoors in as much as possible so that people can still at least stay connected, even if they're late stage in their journey and we can't safely get them outside very easily. Staying connected to the outside is still very important. The reason I show this one is because this is another solution for those of you involved in helping people design. You have instead of heavy curtains that you got to go and open, having either a pull down one big blind. My guess is because of the way this place looks, this is probably this is an electric up and down movement. So it's one button. I do like these engineered floors, and I do like, again, here's another little niche. If I'm trying to help design a little built-in niche like that, where we could put some of our prized possessions so that they're not all sitting around on the floor or on tables and on every available surface. Sensory spaces outside. Getting outside, even if you're just going outside and sitting on the front porch, fabulous. Definitely do it. If you can boost up the environment with some, kitschy or colorful, look at like these raised planters over here. If you can get your loved one to be part of a raised bed situation, let them get their hands in the dirt. We're not trying to win an award here for good housekeeping. It doesn't really matter. The idea is to stay connected. Might they water? We want people to, in their home environment, to be able to continue to live in their home environment. Again, you don't get any of these diagnoses and then the next day your life is over. It's just not the way it is. You could have, especially with Alzheimer's, if you get the diagnosis early enough, you could have many years, 5, 6, 7 more years to live a wonderful, fruitful life. Get outside, engage with the outdoors, get your hands in some dirt, have bird houses where at least if I can't get out there, I can see the birds coming and going. I mean, I know this seems simple. I am telling you, these are tricks that I use with clients and with professional providers. And I wouldn't keep saying them if they didn't have high reward. This is like my dream. And I know I have a designer on here. I know my friend Jeffrey is on here. Jeffrey, if you're still with us, this is my dream for professional settings. Because in professional senior housing settings, we are awful historically have been awful at having a usable dementia-friendly outdoor space with wide, smooth sidewalks and visual interest. And, or look at this grow wall on the left-hand side. But yet these sidewalks are wide and safe. I can get wheelchairs out here. I can get people with walkers and they can engage. It's just something that is my dream to make this happen. And variations of this can be done if possible in your own home setting as well. And as we get close to closing out our time together, I will say I am a fan. I will be doing this in my the new next home my husband and I build is the wall mounted toilet. It's just less, from a movement in and out perspective, but notice the grab bar. Notice I like the protruding grab bar. Remember, being able to get up and down using your own body weight. If that's the only exercise your loved one can do, it still is beneficial using their own body weight to help. And I like that it's on the side, especially. And then this one, I thought they were on both sides, but I'm realizing that it's only on one. I thought this green one over here. I am a fan of having it on both sides so that I can use my body weight. Because how so often we put the bar on the back? That's not even really organic necessarily. Also using signage. Having signage, if somebody is in a familial situation and they can still get up and go to the bathroom on their own, but they might need a little help, because I always advocate for motion lights. So when we did that with my dad in all the rooms, so when he got up, if he was moving about the house, as he passed that sensor, lights were going on, and that at least kept him safer. And I also believe that signage, yes, even in a home setting, can help that person remain, successful just through those visual cues. I'm again in the shower. I know everyone wants the grab bar on the wall, but if you think about the logistics of how you take a shower, you want your person to be holding this type of a bar. They can, even if they need assistance, I could be helping, shower my grandma. She holds on here while we're both standing in there, and I'm able to assist from behind, or however, standby assist, we call it. But it depends wherever people are in their journey. Remember, we're trying to elongate their wellness for as long as possible into the journey. And here's an example of a grab bar that doubles as a toilet roll. I would love for us to see this going on, not only in homes, but in professional settings, because those long silver, crappy 1972, solutions we have upgraded to this. And they can be aesthetically more pleasing. And let me tell you something, y'all, boomers are going to need, the boomers that we're about to be caring for, aesthetically, they're going to need this type of stuff. And thank God I'm here for it, because shouldn't always be sterile and like we're all in an asylum somewhere. It can be lovely, yet useful as well. And the last couple of things here, miscellaneous, just to keep products and ideas to keep people safe in their own home. I will tell you, my mom, who was my dad's primary caregiver, very late into my dad's journey, literally probably a couple months before he passed away, he was still the one able to open the jars because mom, his caregiver, couldn't open jars anymore. We end up now having to get my mom one of these. And sadly, now I use one of these. But anything we can do to help people be able to navigate for themselves. So again, if you've got, arthritic hands, that's not necessarily dementia related, but I am a fan of these. And I'm not a huge fan in a professional setting. I don't like to, especially remember in this professional setting, we tend to get people late. They should have already moved in probably 2 years earlier. That's another problem we have. But so in professional settings, I tend not to be the girl that says you have to say the time, the date, the month. When people are later in their journey, this doesn't become as important. However, this is a large clock. It could be mounted on the wall. When you're in the early stages, when you're a person that's been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, which is a potential precursor for a full-blown dementia diagnosis later, you do want orientation to help keep them successful. So in a home setting, I definitely early in the diagnoses, and also depending on what we're working with, I do recommend giving people just gentle cues like this to preserve dignity, to time and place. This is a product that is this is like $40 if you go to the alzheimersstore.com. It's called Simple, and they've got a whole range of movement, little alarms. They've got a pendant that can be on somebody's belt loop. The little pendant sets off these little sensors so that it lights up. It's just a product that I wanted to put on your radar. SIMPL. You can Google that that's the name of the product, the brand, and you could go. I also Alzheimer's Store is a resource that I do use as well. So here we go. As we close out, if the goal for those living with dementia and their care partners is to remain in their own home, then the environment must support. We want to remember that some of the common traits with all the things we learned about today are movement challenges, visual changes, obviously cognitive changes, and disorientation to time and place. So by ensuring the environment supports safe movement while also being comfortable and familiar, right? It alleviates the stressors that can escalate into unfortunate outcomes, which is what we're trying to avoid. When someone with cognitive decline gets really stressed out, too overstimulated, and they can't tell us, hey, stop talking about me, I hear you. They can't say that because of their disease journey. It starts to manifest itself in other, people call them behaviors. I tend not to say that because that sounds so negative. Anyone that refers to something as a behavior in a dementia person with a full-blown living with dementia, that is a communication technique. I can't tell you you're all gossiping about me and I can hear you, so I'm just going to resist you. I'm going to be snarky with you. Those are communication techniques. Behaviors, so-called, are communication techniques that is really what the person with cognitive decline, that's really all they're capable of. Without being able to say what the problem is, they have to kind of fight or flight or resistance situation. So if you've liked anything that you've heard today, I thank you. If you're still with me, I appreciate you being here. You can screenshot this. You can use, these are QR codes. You can find me on our website. Please follow me on LinkedIn. Steve knows I'm very active on LinkedIn. I share a lot of content. I share videos on the regular about these types of topics. And if you're at all interested in learning anything more about, the Kim Academy, which is the place where I do more dementia training and learning, that's the code on the bottom. Thank you, Steve. I know we've gone over, but I appreciate you, and thank you for your time with your tribe today.
Great, Ellen. I don't know if anyone has any questions. A quick question Ellen can take, or if you want to put it in the chat, and I'll make sure she gets those. But any quick questions we can take care of?
I have a quick one. Just wondering about the wall-hung toilet. Why that would be preferred over a raised fixed toilet on the floor?
Well, you can, depending on the move, and Jeffrey, I'm noticing Jeffrey is also commenting on the raised toilet. If you guys look in your chat, I'll let you read that for yourself. But from my perspective, it's not a end all be all, but the reason I like it is because your feet can, so often, depending on the movement issues, the person will hit the base. Like you can't, if you need to move your feet back as you're also pushing up, you have wiggle room below, where the toilet base is not attached to the floor, if that makes sense. Did that make sense, Michelle?
Yeah. No, that's great. Thank you.
That's just a little, even that little extra inch of being able to move those feet back a little further to help position themselves to get up is it's a goal, you know, it'd be a goal. That's a great question. Thank you.
There is a comment about the recording, and it will be sent out to everyone, and it'll be posted on LinkedIn, which is another reason for connecting with Ellen and with myself and others on LinkedIn. It's a great platform. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap this up if there's no other questions. I know, Ellen, we could have you talk for quite a long bit longer. This is a great topic. We'll have to have you back and do this again.
Yes,
But
sir.
I appreciate everyone's attendance today as we're wrapping up May. Can you believe we're starting June in another day? This is moving along. So with that, I thank you all for your attendance today, and stay tuned next month for when Patty's going to do her presentation. You'll get notification of that and an opportunity to enroll in that.